to feel like a lot of times, like when you are working great culture, you get stuck because you're not taking that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ronnie.
Welcome to Borderless. This is our second episode. We have here today Randy Castillo. He's one of my best friends growing up. And he's a civil engineer, went to Syracuse. He's married now, so he's taken from everyone. And Randy, can you give us a little background about yourself? Tell us how life's been. First start with your childhood growing up in Sleepy Hollow, then go with the whole college process, and then go into how you really decided into becoming a civil engineer who's helped you underway, and anything else you want to mention, like your journey.
Okay. So, as he said, he was Randy Castillo, went to Syracuse, studied civil engineering, but from there I decided to go into construction management, so more into the construction side and not really design. Starting out, so I was born up in White Plains from Westchester. My parents used to live out on Mamaroneck, so I was born in White Plains Hospital, was in the States for 2 months, then we moved back to the Dominican Republic when I was a baby. So we spent there, I want to say the first couple of years of my life there. Then when I was about three-ish, four-ish, I believe, we came back to the States. My brothers were always over there too. So they had to come back, and then we moved into Sleepy Hollow when we came back. So that's when my brothers got back into like middle school, high school in Sleepy Hollow. And basically my whole elementary school started there. So parents just made the decision. I mean, they moved back because my dad had an injury and then he couldn't really work and stuff. So he decided he was like some back injury. So he went back to DR just because he couldn't work here anyway until he was like fully healed. So he decided to go back for a couple of years, and then when that was all done, and they came back because they had the paperwork and all that ready anyway. So they came back, and then that allowed me to have my education here, and then my brothers to finish out their education here. And also, like, my dad, the long-term goal for my dad was when he came here, like, he wanted to be set in the Dominican Republic, but that injury like set him back a little bit. And like we had a home and stuff, but he wanted more, wanted to really set up his, like, have savings and set up a situation over there. That was basically my start and background. So starting elementary school here, and then obviously that's when I met you. We used to play TNT baseball together. Started from that. Then moving on to high school, Sleepy Hollow High School, and the college process. So, it's like once we were in high school, it's like it's hard. I mean, we were more like independent than anybody else in the class or in school, because like ever since we were kids, like I remember like growing up, if my mom had a doctor's appointment, I had to go with my mom to the doctor's appointment, translate for her the paperwork, translate for her anything the doctor was saying. So from an early young age, we kind of had started knowing how to do things, because usually if like we have kids, when we go to the doctor's office with them, we're going to take care of their paperwork. We're going to do all this for them. And something that's, I guess, we do what we do for helping out our family because they need our help. And in the long run, I think that helped us out a lot, and getting to get used to that situation. And eventually when we have to do it for ourselves as adults, it's like way easier. But yeah, like in that regard, I feel like when it comes to the kids or other people in our grade, like they definitely were not used to that. So like when we were in high school, basically we were managing our own high school careers. We weren't getting help in homework, knowing what the next steps were. Like we didn't know what was good to be in a college application. So we had to take that role on ourselves and learn ourselves and learn by each other's mistakes. I remember like early fall semester that senior year or late junior year, we used to be on that private lounge like in the back by the guidance counselors, but it was just us like learning from each other on what the whole college process is like, which was pretty crazy that like nobody in our family like went away for college in our 4-year degree. Like my brothers went to college, but they went to community college and they were still local and stuff, so it was different. But for us to understand the whole college process and figure that out on the fly and figure out the applications ourselves and all that stuff, something that a lot of people don't like surprised to know or don't really understand. Um, but again, like I feel like growing up in a way that we were always helping our family out with whatever the situation would be in a doctor's office or filing their application for whatever rental help or like the WIC stuff, like for coupon for food stamps and stuff. Like
Yeah.
we were the ones filling out the applications. We were the ones filling that all out. So it's like we were always like figuring stuff out ourselves. Like we never had a guide to how to do this or like what to do next.
Yeah. No, it's crazy when you think about it, because there's so much that we have to take on. And like you and your brothers, like your brothers were sure like they could help and stuff like that, but I remember like they wouldn't always be working as well, right? Like it was really you, and I feel like you tell me otherwise, but even though your brothers were there, it felt like you had a bigger opportunity to take it to the next step.
Yeah.
They were still like in that in between, or like more of the Dominican culture, and like they felt like they needed to stay home, go to community college. They went more of a route that would make sense for them to take care of your family and their families, because they had their girlfriends and maybe wives at the time. But like for you, you were able to go to Syracuse and take on like that bigger risk. So it's like good and bad, because you're like for you, like you were able to take that independence and take a further step. Sometimes I feel like a lot of times, like when you are so ingrained in culture, you get stuck because you're not taking that. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
did you feel that way thinking, or did you grow up ever thinking about that? This me from a third party. Like, did you ever kind of like maybe felt blessed that you were able to take a risk to go to Syracuse? You were able to meet your wife and see all these other things. But like, have you ever thought about that? I was just wondering.
I just thought growing up, I knew they had a better situation because, like, my brothers would tease me about it. It's like he's so spoiled, and I'm like, if I like, my parents, they don't spoil anybody. It's just that I was lucky. I had the best situation out of everybody, and even compared to like you or some of my friends, I was lucky that I had both parents in my household. I was lucky that so like my mom was babysitting, so she didn't have to leave the house. So I was always seeing my mom. My dad, he worked longer hours, and I basically only saw him after school for a little bit, and then Sundays was his only day off. But like, I always knew that I was fortunate and lucky because it could always been worse for me. So the way I thought about it is, I just knew that I was fortunate to be where I am. But like, because my brothers always tease me, "Oh, you got it easy," because they were working since they were 14. Like my oldest brother probably he could have been a great athlete, great potential, but he was working since when he came back from DR. It was 8th grade, freshman year of high school. He couldn't really play sports. He had to work.
Yeah,
he had to help my parents with rent and food and all that stuff. And then same thing with my brother Danny. He played a couple of years. He got to play JV, but then junior year hit, and then he had to work. So, and then here comes me, and then I got the opportunity to play sports. I got the opportunity to do other things, and I just knew that I was definitely had the best situation out of all of them, and I was just fortunate to be in the position that I was in. And then added to that fortune is like meeting a group of friends that were all like motivated. Like we weren't really, because there was a good side of people in our grade or in our school that they didn't realize like their potential. Essentially, like they would always have bad influences. I guess I don't know, like just a bad influence, and I guess they weren't guided in the right way either. But we were fortunate to have a group of friends that were like all motivated. When it came to sports, we competed against each other all the time. We never wanted to lose. Even then it became like academically, like we wanted to do good in our grades so we can actually go to college.
Yeah.
And try to push it to the next level, because most of our friend group were like first generation college people.
I think it was like just like me, one other followers that were like actual immigrants. But
yeah,
it's so interesting that you brought up the fact that our friend groups were very motivated along the way. Like you, me, Steven, Julio, the funny thing was, like, you were probably one of the most certain people that, like, I remember in high school, you were like, I'm gonna be an engineer. The rest of us were like, what is it? That sounds like a Power Ranger or something. Like, in the sense where, like, we had no idea what, like, career paths and stuff like that, but you were more prepared. I feel like you really did your research, too, compared to all of us, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
What made you, like, one, stumble on being an engineer, and two, be so certain at such an early age compared to us? Like, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm. We all went through the whole, like.
Yeah, he tried to be an engineer. Yeah.
He tried to be an engineer at one point too.
Yeah, he hit me up about that.
Yeah, so we all had our like process of like jumping around and aligning to something that makes a little more sense for us. You knew from an earlier age.
Yeah.
You still started on that, and you went Syracuse specifically because they had a good program, or like you tried to get into their engineering program later on because you were like, "This is it."
Yeah. Where I stem from it is I was always good at math and science. Like it just came easy to me. So I always liked those subjects. What I really did is that when I went to, like in Dominican Republic and all my life, my dad was like building houses and stuff, and essentially like, you know, building like a ranch and all that stuff. And I don't know, that was just very interesting to me. It's like the whole process, like you're outside, you're, you know, basically making something you put on paper in reality. And then I was always like into that stuff. Like it just, and it's like you got to figure out how to build it. I've always like puzzles and stuff. So like, I don't know, it just clicked with me. And then that was something that's like, and also it's kind of motivation from your parents because our parents wanted us to be business, either to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be some, you know, something they understood was profitable, or you need to go to school for it. Like, for example, if I would have said I went to school for, I don't know, some type of coaching or something like that, like, what are you talking about? What are you going to do with that? Do you even need to go to school for that? Like, stuff like that. Like, they don't understand, like, in DR, you go to school, you become a doctor, a lawyer, and that's what it is. If you don't go to school, you just owning a business, or you're, you know, doing manual labor or stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's never said that's what you go to school for, like, to be a professional or something.
It's interesting that you brought that up because there's two things there that made me think about. One, the standard of education between the United States and like the Dominican Republic are so completely different. Like their standards of becoming a doctor is like so much less comparable to here. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's unincredible. It's just like the ability to get there and become a doctor there is easier compared to here, which is just like how it is. And on top of that, it's like less of a financial burden compared to this to like here, like to become a doctor or something else, or a lawyer. Like you'd have to be in school for like 6 years or something to be 7 years to be a doctor or like whatever it is. Same thing for a lawyer. So like that's the first thing I thought about. And the second thing is that I thought about is like they think about these jobs and roles about they dream of us being like a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or whatever it is. Like, a lot of times those things don't align to what we truly want, but we follow that path and stuff like that. Did you ever feel pressure at any time to reconsider the thought of being an engineer? Like, have you ever thought about like, oh, like maybe I could be a doctor, maybe I could do this thing, just because like they were like choose something that makes money to get us out of here. I feel like a lot of like I remember my mom was like, oh, you like become a doctor or become a lawyer because I was supposed to be a lawyer. But like I remember for a very long time, I was like, I'm gonna go to law school, and then I feel like I don't want to go to law school.
Nah. You know what I'm saying? My parents never really pressured me on my career path because I guess I already told them that that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I never got any pressure from that. I mean, the only pressure was like it'll be actually on myself because like I knew the path. Like I had a, like for example, first semester, freshman year, like off the gate, honestly, I just bodied all my classes. I had a 3.9 something GPA off the rip.
Yeah.
And I guess I was just setting that pressure on myself because I knew it was only gonna get harder. So it was like I would just constantly like put that pressure on myself that I needed to like succeed. And then, you know, that set up a good foundation for me because the first 3 semesters, I was just, classes weren't easy, but it was like, they all like made sense to me. But then once that second semester and sophomore year and junior year specifically, that's when like the engineering program really turns up. And then you really gotta like, it's hard to get good grades. So like,
that's when you read everyone out, right?
Exactly. So like junior year, first semester, that's usually when most people just drop out of engineering.
Yeah. It's so interesting. That's what happens with like all a doctor or like the bio majors at Siena, like the first year that fly by, and then after that, they just get weeded out, like destroyed out, which is a good thing because then like it shows your commitment on top of the people that are worth doing it. But a lot of people come into college and they have this dream, or like they are just like going with what they just secretly believe that they were gonna be, and then reality sets in. It's like, right, like I'm just gonna be a psych major now, or like something like a lot less than what they originally like.
Yeah,
humbles them.
yeah,
But you got through it.
yeah. I got through it. And then honestly, something that I discovered like while I was at school is that I already had good enough grades that if I didn't want to do engineering, that even though since I started off as an engineering degree, like I already took a lot of maths and stuff that I could have like switched to the business school if I wanted to, or you can since I had good grades, I could have transferred to like Newhouse in Syracuse, which is one of the best like broadcasting school. I didn't want to do that either, but I realized that there was more options for me if I didn't want to do engineering at school. So like that kind of eased off a little bit for me. But
do you feel like that was like a survival thing? Not a survival thing, but something like have a backup plan? Because I always have a backup plan. I don't know if a lot of people have backup plans when they plan things out. I feel like I've seen people just, this is what I want to do, this whatever, and then like they get crushed. But I feel like you, me, and like Steven and other, we always have had a backup plan. Like we think of the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that way, or is it just me?
I thought that way. Like I always had my options, and then like my brothers got older and stuff. That was talking to me about options, and then even my cousins, they're like police officers. Is like from my sophomore year, they're like, you should just take the NYPD test because let's say you go into your whatever, you graduate, you got a job, you don't like what you're doing. Like it's as long as you graduate, you have a good backup. And it's good benefits. Eventually, you don't have to stay in the NYPD. You can do other things, try to transfer out. But yeah, like it's good to have options. People like don't really think about that unless there gets like this is like for everybody, honestly. Like everybody's parents does that. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's like they're always on top of you. Like, hey, are you doing this? You should know about this. And then as a young person, you brush it off. I got it. You think you know everything. You think you don't think you're gonna fail or you're gonna get on hard times. So you don't have a backup plan. And then for some people, that might even put even more pressure on them. It's like, fuck, I messed this up. And I don't know what else to do next.
Yeah,
stuff like that. But
I agree with that. I think a lot of parents, no matter where you come from, they're very much like think about this, think about that. I think the biggest difference though is that I've seen is like a lot of people who don't have our background or like have gone through so much, they don't have that backup plan. They're like, I'm going to be a communications major. I'm going to get a job in marketing, or I'm going to do this. And then once reality kind of sets in, and they never got the actual experience or worked their butt off during those years to get internships and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Reality sits in, and now they have to go reconsider like their whole reality. They have to go back to school. I know someone that like was a marketing major but never had any experience, so they went back to school to get a 2-year program or something, like a master's or something like that, to be able to then go get a job, and then they were able to get an internship, or like they were able to then network because they were so busy. But they were figuring it out as well, so I got to give them that.
Yeah.
But for us, it's like we had to grind. You had an internship with what's called down the Margaret Cuomo Bridge, but the Tappan Zee Bridge at the time, when one so it was getting taken down, and two, when like it was they asked you to come back. That's what it was, right?
No, I was just there for the construction of it. But I was because it was still like they're still building the new one while the old one was still there. But again, I got fortunate with that, right? Because that's when the mentorship program started in Tarrytown.
Yeah.
And then when then we had Ishmael. Remember, he went into our cousin because he was working there.
Yeah.
And that's how that connection started. But if I never had that, then I never would have had that. Yeah, again. So like, I've been in a lot of times at the right place at the right time, and which but when the opportunity came to me, like, all right, I got this now. It's up to me to kill the interview, so I had to prepare for an interview. Like, once it's all about taking advantage of your opportunities. Like when something happens, go in at 100% and make sure you're ready. Like you got to do your research. You got to figure out like go online, figure out best interview tactics. Like from then, and then the more interviews that people have, the better you're gonna become on them.
Yeah.
And it's like one lesson that I got from any interview is like don't let yourself be that the person that stops talking and ends the interview because you don't have anything. I would always go to an interview with a list of questions, and then I memorize those questions and have backups to those questions. And then let's say I'm in an interview, and then the interview is basically over. And then when they ask you, which you always do, any other questions you have, just make sure you continually ask kind of questions and make them an interview.
Yeah.
That means, that makes them think, oh, he's engaged, he did his research, he's really interested. And that, like, it shows the effort you put in. So, like, whenever you get an opportunity, put that effort in.
Yeah.
And make sure that it's known that you put that effort in. And then, they will most likely choose you over anybody else.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good point there. I feel like the nice thing about what we had, the mentoring program that we had started, a mentoring program with the Terry Talents, was it was a path forward. We were able to see different career paths, but on top of that, they gave you the ability to put your foot in the door, and then what you sound was like you were able to fully open the door.
Yeah.
You were able to go through the door, whether that's considered not forced, but like you really opened the door. Like the door was there. It's just a matter of like really taking advantage of that. Like a lot of people don't think about it that way. Maybe they haven't gotten enough experiences, but they're shy, they're not confident. And that builds over time as well. But like you at an early age knew this is an opportunity, I gotta take advantage of this. I gotta show myself every single day to make sure I can take the next step.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I remember like it was funny because like it'd be like friends like when you were dating Meg and she was taking a train back to over the summer, she'd be like, "There's a rainy bridge. Randy's on the bridge," and she would send a Snapchat to you, like a stick version of you on the bridge. But I think that was like the first foot in the door that you went through that opened up Turner and the rest of them, because then you had experience on your resume.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that opportunity or didn't take it seriously in college. Which again, it goes back to like we did really had a good group of friends that were like out there trying to get after it.
Yeah.
What is one thing now that I'm using that some of our other friends you feel like what was the difference between not just our mindset, what was them? Like the other people that we were very close friends with, and they went and like pursued their not like a natural like their dreams like baseball or something, and they went to like a D2 school or like, but then they ended up in the hole or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think was the biggest difference? Like, did they not take the? I think we tried to bring them to the mentorship thing, but they just didn't take it as serious at that time. So like they just didn't have not just the mindset. What other things you think were there that were missing for them? Because like I feel like I see them now, and they're just like not really going anywhere. We have options, no matter if we change career paths. We have the network, and we have all this other stuff. And we're professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the biggest difference now, but back then? What was it between that?
I mean, it's like I know they have a set dreams that people really want to try to follow. I guess they could put all their eggs in one basket, and but again, it's not having that guidance when with that. Like, sure, you're gonna go for like college to play sports. But sometimes those colleges aren't, allow you to do different other things. Like, sure, I know you're playing baseball and you're trying to, let's say, make it to the next step, but nobody was there to guide them in that whole process. Because I don't know anybody from our town that successfully, made it through a sport or had experience in that. Let's say if those tools were available to them in our school, like you can explain like what that route is. What are the risks? What are the good? But there's a lot of risks, and I feel like nobody could really explain that to them. So, I know. I mean, you gotta respect that they're trying to do the dream, but I don't think it's like they just weren't there mentally, because I feel like they work hard at their sport and tried really hard to do what they wanted to do. But again, it's not having that guidance to know what the risks are and what's going to happen if it doesn't happen. That's starts from like an early age. But yeah, again, we never had that. Like we were always like on our own and trying to figure it out. So.
Yeah.